Welcome everybody to Chamber of Solutions for Portsmouth and indeed the wider areas of Hampshire, with a special focus on startups. This is a perfect opportunity, I think, if you're looking to start a business or have already recently started a business, to help it get it back on track, to help it get some traction, to help it move forward. And what is quite an extraordinary time to be going into business. Certainly in the next few months, I think we're going to see more and more people making that right option to go for self-employment, becoming an entrepreneur, setting up an enterprise. And we're here at every stage to help you through that process. Portsmouth Chamber of Solutions is supported by Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, Shaping Portsmouth, and Mission Performance, but is also working in partnership with Solent Lep and Portsmouth City Council, Radian and Enterprise South. So everything you need in terms of support for your business is readily available from the programme that we're offering you today. But most importantly, this is your programme. This is what we like to call a community of practice. You are here to share with each other. We have specialists that you'll be hearing a lot from today, but more importantly, we want to hear from you. That can be through the chat function, that can be directly by questioning or sharing experiences live during the event today. Today's going to be recorded, and so there will be opportunities for you to be able to share this with others and to send this out to people that you know and to help to build the network. Because the most important part of this is to build your own personal network of contacts, colleagues who can help you on your entrepreneurial journey. Whether you are new to it, whether you are redirecting your business, whether this is a new challenge to you from a skills point of view, we're here to help you, and you're there to help each other. It genuinely is your community. I'm going to be in the background today. I'll be sort of switching my camera off any moment now. But I will be there on the chat function to help and to guide and to provide you some direction with regard to contacts and links that may be useful to you. But as a Chamber of Commerce, what I do want to say is you're always very welcome to join. You're very welcome to participate in the Chamber. And in the coming weeks, we will be obviously contacting you, engaging with you and encouraging you to get involved. But I would also get involved with our partners, get involved with Shaping Portsmouth, get involved with the programmes provided by Portsmouth City Council. They're all there to help you, and they can make the difference between success and greater challenges as a business. So thank you very much for coming today. And like you, I look forward to the content that we're all going to enjoy. Back to you, Rob.
Thanks, Ross. So let's just do a little bit more housekeeping. So we've got two ways of interacting, the chat function, which you're all very familiar with now. We've also got the participant panel. If you go down to the bottom right, there should be a more button or a raised hand. If you click on that, you can get the attention of Bob. Bob's our moderator, our tech host in the background, along with the panelists, myself in particular. We'll be monitoring the chat and putting the questions to the panel. If you want to engage the panel directly, then that's fine too. Just let us know and I'll invite you to address your question to the panel. The more of that we have, the better, because we want to make it collaborative, a virtual meeting scenario. So that's the boring housekeeping out the way. Very short introductions. I'm one of the founding directors of Mission Performance. We've been going for about 20 years. We help organizations increase their performance. We help them to lead, coach, and communicate more effectively. We do it globally, nationally, regionally, and also now very much virtually, and will do for the foreseeable future. We've got a very, very experienced panel for you this morning, and I'm going to ask each of them just to give us a brief introduction to themselves, starting with Jamie. Jamie?
Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. So yeah, my name's Jamie. I'm the business advisor for Radian Housing Association. It's a part of the project which is ERDF funded. It's a business support project called Create. It's designed to help people start business, go self-employed, with free courses, support, mentoring and workshops. My business journey started in 2014. So I traveled to Costa Rica. I studied the production of chocolate. I became a chocolatier, led me to launching my business in the UK later that year, developing products, selling fine chocolates online, directly to customers, wholesalers. I take great pride in supporting others in business and starting up.
That's great. Thank you, Jamie. Emma?
Good morning, my name's Emma. I run an international marketing agency called amari.co.uk. I started my career in big corporate. I worked in BP retail in sales, and then moved into strategy, and then finally ran global social media for BP for a while too. And yeah, I'm here to really help you look at marketing, how to do that effectively as a startup. I was quite lucky. My business hit 6 figures within 15 months, and most of the things that I learned, I've actually journaled about and put those resources online for you. So yeah, anything to do with marketing, please give me a shout.
Thank you, Emma. Andrew?
Good morning, I'm Andrew Skipsey, Managing Director at M12 Solutions, and we're behind the Giganet brand, which you might have heard of in the area. I did 9 years in the Royal Marines, not a great foundation, I think, for going into business, but I started out as a trainee sales rep selling telephone systems and got myself a seat on the board just a few years later. And for 15 years, I was a sales guy before spinning out my business, M12 Solutions, and becoming an agency of the same business. So having a soft landing before going self-employed is actually, quite good. Here we are, coming up 17 years later, still in business. We won our industry's biggest award after just 3 years, and awards are, really an important benchmark, and we're still doing all right in that arena, employing 24 people right now.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. Let's go to Tom.
Hi, my name's Tom Lloyd. I am currently the Vice Principal at Portsmouth College, and I found my way in education after setting up my own business. So I've sort of been on a very similar journey to most of you guys. So I've transitioned out of full-time employment into self-employment, and then back into full-time employment whilst running my business alongside. And just really, my perspective today is very much about the education and the support that's available through the education sector. And if I can sort of pass on any pearls of wisdom through the journeys that I've had, I will endeavour to do so today.
Thank you, Tom. Let's go to Len. Len, I think you're on mute.
Right, sorry about that. Good morning, I'm Len. I started self-employment 29 years ago, seems like just yesterday, after a corporate career in designing roads and bridges and selling IT systems. And for 29 years, I've coached people either in their personal lives, but also with small business owners, helping them start their business, choose the right business, and then make it grow. More importantly, also get the right balance between running their business and enjoying their lives. I've got a strong background in the Chamber of Commerce movement. I was on the board of Surrey Chambers of Commerce and South East England Chambers of Commerce for many years. I actually ended up president of Surrey Chambers of Commerce about 12 years ago. So my passion is really to help people fulfill their dreams through running their own business and making their business serve their lives. Look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Len. Guy.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Guy Robinson. I'm the owner of Zebra Accounting in Fareham. We're accountants and business advisors. We specialise in cloud accounting. I have a team of 9 people here, and I'm passionate about supporting owner-managed businesses from startup to many £1 million turnovers. I believe accountants should support and help businesses and not just prepare accounts and tax returns, and to help people to achieve their personal and business financial goals. Cloud accounting is changing the whole profession and how accounting and tax work. And I'm pleased that I was one of the first users of Xero 10 years ago, and became their most valued professional 5 years ago. So I'm looking forward to helping and giving some advice to all of you on this webinar on anything to do with starting up and cloud accounting and finance generally.
Thank you, Guy, and thank you, panel. So you'll get a sense that we've got, everyone there's a common thread that runs through everyone on the panel, that they've either been part of or started their own business. In addition to that, they've got some specialist insights that you've heard about. In order that we can frame the topic at hand, I'm going to ask Len to give us a broad perspective on the topic, and then we're going to go to each of the panelists giving a little bit of a specific advice in relation to this topic, and then we'll open it up for full discussion. So Len, can you give us that broad perspective of this topic and help frame it for us, please?
Okay, thanks. Well, welcome to the start of your business journey. It's hopefully it'll be fun for you. There will be up times and there will certainly be down times, but overall, it's a good choice that you've made. My goal just for a few minutes is just to introduce very high level, just some of the things that you'll need to consider in your journey, whether you're just starting or whether you're already in the motion of growing your business. Hopefully just some things to think about. One of the things I've learned working with business people is that there's two sides to this journey. It's not just a business journey, but the first side is the business journey. And we all know what we need to do with the business. We have to come up with a goal. We need to come up with some kind of plans, activities, boil it down into specific areas of the business. We've got the sales and marketing side. We've got the delivery, the product delivery, the service, the customer management side. We've got the back end side, the accounts, the legal, any HR stuff, tax, accounting side. And we've got the overall running of the business. And when we're in the corporate world, of course, we just do one of those elements. Suddenly when we leave the corporate world, and I very much remember the very first day when I left the corporate world and woke up Monday morning and sat at my desk on my first day of self-employment with an empty diary, looking around me thinking, my God, what do I do now? And the world back then, 29 years ago, is very, very different to how it was then. So it was quite a journey. But that side of it is the how-to. And it's very, very important, obviously, to work out the best ways of how to sell, how to market, how to run your business. One of the big issues that you're going to have is obviously you're going to be initially pretty much in charge and doing most of it initially, if not all. And time management, priorities, working out how much time do I spend in delivering, what about sales and marketing, what about the back end? That'll be a shifting target as you go along. As a guide, I've found for myself that once I've got the business, and I've had a number of businesses in 29 years because I've sort of reinvented myself a few times, is to always, even if you're full, even if you've got loads of clients, make certain you spend at least 10% of your time selling and marketing, or else you go through the feast and famine cycle, which believe me is not fun. So even if you've got order book, even if you've got lots and lots of work in the pipeline, still keep that marketing, whatever that may mean for you, going. So you've got a good, healthy pipeline, because sales cycles have lead times and it will take some time before it translates. So never forget that. So managing your time, managing your priorities will be very, very important side. But the business side is just the how-tos, which is, as I say, is very, very important. But actually success in any field of life, of sports, and of business is partly down to what you do and how you do it, but it's also partly down to what's between your ears and the personal side of it. And of course, by going into self-employment, and for most of you, I presume, will be working from home as well, you're now going to be running a business, working, etc., in an area and an environment that will have a massive impact on your life, your lifestyle, your relationships, your family, and of course, what direction your life actually goes. So there is a massive journey, as well as taking a business from startup to successful optimum level of size. You're also going to go through a personal journey. If some of you, before you started your job, were asked, what do you do? you would have said, oh, well, I'm in the corporate, I do accounts, I'm a salesperson, I do this, I do that. And that would have felt comfortable because you've done that for a long time. If you ask that now, what do? You kind of sort of, it's not quite as easy, it's not quite as comfortable. And that's your personal identity. And psychologically, that is very, very important. And at some stage in the future, you'll have successful businesses. And then when somebody says, what do? You're going to say quite proudly and very much feel every ounce within you, well, I am a self-employed this, or I've got my own business doing this. I am a business owner. I remember the first time we ran a communities practice, when I asked people to say, I am a business owner, most people couldn't even get the words out their mouth, because it almost violated what their subconscious was saying as to who they are. So you're going through a personal identity transformation, which is actually quite a bigger challenge than just the how-tos. And getting those two things in balance, and leading on to the final point I want to make, and that is getting that balance is important. But who is in control? That's a very, very big issue. Most people start off the self-employment by saying, well, okay, this is the career or job I've had. These are my bills. I need to start my business, and I need X amount as quickly as possible in order to cover my living expenses, my holidays, and all those kind of things. And we start off with that frame. And then we then say, okay, now what can I do as a business that will give me that as quickly as possible? And as soon as you start with that mindset, you're actually already putting boundaries and limits on what you're going to do as a business and what impact that's going to have on your life. As opposed to saying, well, actually, I've reached a point for whatever reason, I want to start my own business. I've got a blank sheet of paper. Ideally, before you start putting too many things down in concrete, ask the question, what do I want in my life? Where do I want my life to go? Where do I want to be in the next 3-5 years? Do I want to retire early? Do I want a lifestyle that means I only work so many days? Do I want a lifestyle that doesn't fix me to a particular geography or location? And how do I want this to interface with my personal life? And so define the life that you want first, then choose the business that you want, and then work out how can my business serve my life. A lot of self-employed people, a lot of people start their business, go hell for leather in it, start making it succeed, and their top priority then becomes the business, and the life becomes number 2. And then you get into all kinds of issues and all kinds of problems. And believe me, I've had 2 marriages and 2 divorces, and it's not easy to juggle running your own business and running a family and running a marriage. So make certain that you clear it in your own mind, the personal journey and what you want out of it. So the personal journey for me is, what do you want, and why? What's the personal motivation? That's very important, because you're going to have dark times, and if you don't have a strong, compelling why, you won't get through them. So you need a strong, compelling why that's going to get you through those dark times. And then who are you going to become? So the personal journey is, what are you doing, why are you doing it, and who do you want to become as a result of it? And most importantly, have fun on the way. I hope that was 5 minutes.
Great, Len. That's great sage advice from you. I'm now going to turn to Jamie. Jamie.
So really, my particular journey throughout my business was actually reaching out to others and learning from other people in business. So becoming a chocolatier, I actually volunteered and studied chocolate with other chocolate makers around the country. And for me, it's that collaboration and working with like-minded people. So really, for me, it's really connecting. And the biggest connections you can make is with people in the same industry. So although they may be potentially competitors, actually they can be the biggest asset to your business and business growth. I've learned a huge amount from other chocolatiers, chocolate makers, and other business people. We have different support groups, we have WhatsApp groups, with each other of things that might be going on, in terms of scam or anything as well. So the biggest thing, and those that are part of the Rage and Create project will know, is support is everything, collaboration is everything, and just working together. Don't be afraid to ask questions, always look to learn, and always look to develop yourself personally, because I certainly know you're on your own for quite a lot of the time starting a business, and if you're in a good state, a personally good mindset, then your business will be as well. So personal development is just as important as developing the business. And so look after yourself, have time for yourself, practice things like gratitude, and things that are just going well, and things that are not going well, reflect and how to move forward. I think that really kind of sums up my whole sort of attitude towards business and growth.
Jamie, when we spoke earlier, you had some very specific experience about how people could access free startup courses. Tell us a little bit more about those.
Yeah, absolutely. So as expressed, I work for Radiant Housing. So we recently got ERDF, European Regional Development Fund, to help people start business within certain locations in Hampshire. And that's for people to start business, go self-employed, or even if you're in a business already, you can access free courses. So we can send out this. I'll put it on the chat actually, make an email address to myself if you're interested in the courses. They're virtually all online now. They used to be in person.
Yeah.
So they'll go on the courses, but also then they'll access the additional support like the mentoring and workshops, and then also like marketplaces. So if you want to sell your product on the market, it's all being fully funded by ERDF.
That's fantastic, Jamie. And that link, everyone, is on the chat function as we speak. So Emma, thank you, Jamie. Emma.
Hello. So marketing, where do we start? Well, in business, there's 4 different types of capital that you need to be aware of. So, and we'll talk about all of them, I think, a little bit today. So you've got financial capital, which you obviously track through your cash flow. You've got your physical capital, so laptops, vans, uniform, that sort of thing. You have your people capital, so the talent that you've got within your business. And then you have your social capital. And that's the really important bit for marketing that most people don't track, they don't measure. And they really don't do anything with. But as a startup, when cash is something you're really trying to hold on to as much as possible, probably, it's a really great way of developing your business. So what I would suggest in the first instance is really utilising your network. So when you're in the sort of first stages of your business and you've got some early adopters, your first customers, really make a point of asking for referrals. So I always ask my clients, on a scale of 1 to 10, who would you recommend me to? And that's a great way of them saying, oh my goodness, of course I'd recommend you. And then you just ask them who they'd recommend you to, and that's a great warm lead. And then the other thing is, if they don't have anyone to recommend there and then, is to ask them for a testimonial. So a really important part of marketing is actually social proofing, and that's getting other people to say nice things about you, basically. And the more you can do that, the more you'll grow. It's how you develop your network, and sharing those great things that people say on social media, and using social media really strategically and really effectively, rather than just as a broadcast channel to sort of chuck things out, is a really important part of that as well. There are a couple of things I would say as a startup that you need to do first. So one of those things is get the message straight. So one thing I always tell my clients to do is a one-pager, and that explains who you are, what you do, and how you make a difference on a one-page PDF. That helps you get really clear on what it is you actually do, because you have to be very erudite. And that's a great thing that you can put on your social media profiles. You can put it on your website as a downloadable, so other people can download it and share it when they're referring you. And you can also pop it in emails when you're talking to prospective clients, rather than just sending them to a website and hoping they find the information that they need. So the one thing I would say about marketing that you really need to be aware of straight off is attention economics. So a wealth of information drives a poverty of attention. So be bold, be brief, be gone. Give them the information they need in order to make a decision, and then just give them a little bit of time to do that. and really try and build up those relationships, add value. So just constantly be having great conversations with people and just be trying to add value all the time, because the more you do that, the more intrinsic value you'll create, the more social capital you'll create. And that means you can then work out strategically whether you need, so there's 6 different types of social capital you can access. So there's information, there's intelligence, skills, support, money is obviously a good one, and access to people and things that you might not otherwise be able to get to. So figuring out what it is you actually need, and then finding the people you need to talk to in order to make that happen is genuinely the best way of doing business. And you feel really popular, which is good too. So that's that.
Excellent summary. Thank you, Emma. And hot on the heels, marketing would be nothing without sales. So Andrew, over to you.
Emma, you almost tread into my world there. It's because doing sales and having the pitch, there is an element of marketing involved. I'll just, yeah, my background, starting out as a sales guy, things really haven't changed an awful lot. It really is helping people to make a positive decision towards what you're promoting. And most of our sales come at a point where people don't feel that they have been closed. It is the natural time for them to place an order. So selling has had a pretty bad press, really, I think, over the years, but done correctly, where you've qualified that that somebody needs what you've got and that you're well placed to provide what you have. Then when you get to the point of securing an order, yes, there might be a little bit of toing and froing with regard to price and terms, but it should feel natural, and it shouldn't be anything that you should be scared about doing, even if your preference is towards something else that you've done in your past, which has led you to your self-employment. Sales, it's worth, I just sort of drew out this grid. I don't know whether you can see it, but let me tell you what it is. So there's, I think that you've got single deals and then recurring deals. Now, single deals is, for example, in my world, we'll sell perhaps a phone system. It might be a £10,000 phone system with £3,000 of profit and a maintenance contract where we get a little bit of money each year. But I've got my buy price on all that we're purchasing. But my recurring income really comes from some services. And another kind of deal is the recurring income deal, which is where somebody's buying the same solution, but they're perhaps paying £15 per user per month, and they'll pay me for forever, as far as I'm concerned. You know, what we've got is just good stuff, software driven, which is upgraded. As long as they're still in business, that is by far the preferred way, certainly in my world. And just remember this law of 78. If you get one customer a month, and they're paying you next month and the month after, in 1 year, you've got 78 deals in effect with the compound effect. So you do your 3-year plan, and recurring income is certainly the way to go if you've got the option. That said, you know, some people, they know they want to buy it and for it to be theirs, they know that that's probably overall a low cost. Then we've got the 2 types of customer that you'll secure in terms of, have they come to you? Have they come to you as a result of your marketing or working with someone like Emma, who's enticed people to find you, or have you found them? And the you found them bit is your networking, your contacts, making people know what you do, such that, oh God, yeah, in telecoms, and the phone's ringing. Sorry, folks. So they, and to me, you've got to be working both as an organisation. You've got to have a balance and not reliance on one or the other. And then we've got the short term or long term. And to me, the business that you can actually find and secure in the next 2 or 3 months has got to be balanced with those really, really good contacts who might be your customer in 3 years' time. My biggest deal was for Bristol and West Building Society's head office. And I got that in 1999, £750,000, but I started that in 1994. You know, it is because I got to the useful contact. And don't think that, oh God, yeah, 5 years or whatever, that is going to be miles away. Believe me, it will come round. And then you've got your big, medium and small stuff. And you know, we will work on stuff that is quite big at the other end of the country if we've got the right contact and we've qualified that they will work with us. So we'll put time, effort and energy into that. But if it was a small customer at the other end of the country, then no, it's not our bag. Unless it's actually coming to you, they want what you've got and you can sell it remotely. So the sales process, the pipeline and the process is as much about putting new opportunities into the funnel and taking them out, because if they're not going to be your customer, find out early before they actually use your expertise to buy from the people who they really wanted to work with. You get close to people, and sometimes, yes, you can swing people towards you that might have worked somewhere else, and that's how good your product or service is, what you have, the edge that you've got over the competition, and need to articulate this. But first impressions always count. Your first impressions, if you can get your pitch right over the phone or face to face really well and with clarity, that's really good. A little tip, something that I stole from Sherlaw's, somebody who was presenting there, was to actually have my elevator pitch on the back of my business card. So I can, that's like a PowerPoint slide that actually I could spend 20 minutes on, or I can spend 30 seconds on, depending on the amount of time that I've got. So it's know who you're helping. So, you know, my potential customers before, they're confused and frustrated. Our industry, you know, drives people crackers. But afterwards, they should feel in control and empowered to deal with their services. And we're only about improving their competitive advantage. Know what you're about, and know, you know, it's not so much what I do or what I am, it's what you do to help people. You know, always remember that. So I could ramble on for quite a while, as you could probably tell, but I'll leave it there for now. I'm sure you're going to have some questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Some great tips there. I'm now going to turn to Tom. Tom?
Hi, guys. Yeah, I think for me, I wanted to start by saying, and you're probably all feeling this at the moment, whether you started your business or just thinking about starting a business, you're going to find yourself in the quandary of time versus money. And I think for any startup, it's where do I start? How do I find the time to do all of these things? And the reason that I frame it is you will have two choices. It'll either be a case of you're going to need to learn all of those things and use that time to acquire those skills and knowledge and behaviours, or you're going to buy in some of those services if you don't have the time to do that. And I think that's really where the role of education sits within all of this. For us as Portsmouth College, you know, we are the sixth form college for the city, and we see it as our role to make sure we're meeting the training needs of the city. And in order to do that, we need to support you acquiring those knowledge, skills and behaviours to go on and make your business a success, really, from that side. And to do that, we break that down into three parts, probably. It's about you, your business and the future. I think for you individually, the education supports you to identify those gaps and then fill those gaps with the knowledge you need to go on to be successful, and support you in garnering the experience that you're getting, you know, be able to do it. For the business side of things, education, I think, can support building a network across the city regarding the various different businesses we work with, and also student voice within that network. So we've got 1,500 16 to 19-year-olds and 2,000 adult learners, all of which are people that work in and around the city when it comes to Portsmouth, as have, for those of you outside of Portsmouth, your local colleges as well, from that side. So that's how it can really help shape your business, because they're the people that are going to potentially be buying your product, or they're your future employees potentially from that side as well. And the third part really around the future is that talent identification and talent development. And I think, you know, we've got some fantastic students at 16 to 19 and some fantastic adult learners as well. And we're able to provide that platform and give access to those people where you can spend time perhaps coming and talking to them through the various programs that we run. And you may spot somebody you think that person's got, you know, something special there that we really want to work with. And then through some of the schemes and programs that we run, you're able to start to work with them. And the final bit I want to talk about was just the methodology. So the takeaways really on what does that actually mean to me as a business? And I'll break it down into a pathway and into 3 parts. The first part of the pathway is what I call the preparation pathway. And that is about you as businesses accessing how you prepare people for work. So there are a number of initiatives like the Kickstart scheme, some of you would have seen through government, where you can access fully paid employees that will have been through a prepare to work program, and then you can tap in and government will pay for them to, we're still waiting for the full guidance, but approximately 13 weeks full pay to come and work with you on the business. Gives them the experience they need and you the opportunity to access somebody to come and support the growth of your business. Or it could just be a work experience placement over a period of time. That if you wanted to give somebody half a day work experience, help them prepare for work and give you some resource. The next part of the pathway is skills at work. And that is where there are a range of support, again, available through apprenticeships, adult education, free online courses. You know, you're able to pick the type of course and qualification that's going to help you fill those gaps. And the apprenticeships, for example, for an SME business, you know, if you take on a 16 to 18-year-old, that delivery is going to be completely free. And if not, for somebody older, you have to pay a 5% contribution. So if you yourselves identify, actually, I've listened to all these things today, there's lots I need to learn. I'm going to go and do a management apprenticeship, for example. You'll be able to get that 95% of it paid for you. And there are also advanced learner loans for other qualifications if you wanted to do it as an adult education course. So a whole raft of qualifications there. And then the final part of the pathway is management and education, where you may look to train up people in your particular sectors. We find in a lot of sectors that we work with, especially, that, you know, there's an aging demographic and skills are being lost. So, you know, bear that in mind as you're growing your business. If you've got a unique skill set that you want to pass on, maybe think about accessing teaching qualifications, and that could add a new strand to your business as well. So that's a rapid summary, I think, of the role of education. And like I say, there are a range of different funding pots and different training opportunities that you're able to access as a startup business. Great,
Tom, that's fantastic. We've got, I'm going to introduce Guy in a second, and we'll come directly to your questions, and we're going to pick them off forensically, one by one, so that we answer them appropriately. But before we do that, Guy, over to you, sir.
Hello again. Looking at a few things then on the financial side of setting up in business. Running your own business is definitely a very rewarding experience. Hard work, but can be extremely rewarding. It is a journey, and during your journey you'll move from almost having a job, even though you're now self-employed, as you become an employer and take people on, and then learn how to manage them. And then maybe one day you'll actually invest in companies rather than be working in them. So it is a journey as you go through building up your own business. One of the things that people ask me often is, how long do businesses last? And it's probably worth getting the bad news out of the way up front, because depending on which statistics you look at, something like 80% of businesses don't achieve their 5th anniversary. And if you do that for a second period of 5 years, it means that just 4% of businesses are there 10 years later. But the bad news has always got a good news as well, hasn't it? And there are lots of things you can do to make sure that you're part of that 96%, sorry, the 4% that are there in 10 years' time. And there are some things which are incredibly simple as well. If you have a goal, you drive your business forward. And if you monitor your goal and monitor the target, the business schools have come up with saying that your business performance will be 16% better. That's just from having a goal and measuring it. And it's, if you like, the psychological effects of knowing where you're going. Also, if you have a business coach, if you have somebody who can help support you, who you can talk to, it may be a friend, it may be a professional person, it may be somebody who's on the panel today, anybody who can just help you along the way, particularly in those early days. If you keep good accounting records, the percentage suddenly shoots up, and 80% of people do survive there for 5 years. If you take on board other specialists, and remember that to do whatever you do as a business, your service, you'll produce the goods, you need your sales and marketing. You need to look after your people, and you need to remember that it is a journey, and that means continual education. If you take on all those things as well, the statistics show that well over 90% of businesses reach their 5th anniversary. So it's not all bad news. An awful lot do fail, but there's an awful lot you can do to actually put yourself in the right side of the statistics. Personal goals are really important, and I can only echo Len's comments earlier about making sure that your business serves you and not the other way around. Make sure you know what you want personally, financially, and your business is there to help you achieve it. Think about your long-term goal. Where do you want to be in 10 years' time? When do you want to retire, maybe? Then just think back to the next couple of years, your medium term, and then break it down to your next 12 months. And it all starts to make sense. It starts to give you some targets to work to. And that means you've got more chance of actually achieving them. A lot of people ask about whether I should trade as a sole trader or a limited company. Well, in the UK, many people start off as limited companies, whereas in Europe, you find it's the other way around. But if you start off as a sole trader, you are trading as yourself. And the cost of doing business is actually a lot less than working as a limited company. The whole point of trading as a limited company is it gives you more protection because it separates out your business and your personal life. But it comes at a price. It comes at the price of more regulation, more forms to fill in. And maybe there's a tendency in the UK for too many people to jump into limited companies straight away. So do think about trading just as a sole trader to start with, and then moving on to a limited company later on when your business grows, when you start to have to rely on other people. There are a few industries where you may need to start as a limited company. If you're a professional, you often need to start as a limited company, for example, because you don't want to be at risk personally if that bridge you design collapses for some reason. So there are reasons for starting as a sole trader, there's reasons for starting as a limited company, but talk to someone to see what's appropriate to you. People then go on and ask about what's bookkeeping, what's accounting, what's the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant, for example. Well, bookkeepers generally help you record the basic transactions that you're doing in your business. Now, actually, in fact, the recording of business transactions at a business startup level is actually pretty straightforward. in that you do sales and you have to raise a sales invoice for everything you sell. That's a legal obligation. And you buy things, so you have purchases, and you need to record those too because you'll get tax relief for them. And you need a bank account. You should always have a separate bank account for your business, not trade through one that you use for personal use as well. So if you can keep your sales organized and your purchases organized and have a bank account, the trick is to keep it all reconciled. And those are your fundamental accounts. And that's what your bookkeeper will do, or what you can do. And over the last 10 years, we've seen a massive increase in cloud accounting, which has actually brought bookkeeping out of the dark ages and into a situation where most people can actually do their basic bookkeeping, because the systems actually reconcile your sales and your purchases and your bank as you go along. So look at cloud accounting as a way of helping you to get yourself going, and use it straight away. So what are accountants then? Well, accountants are people who have had additional training to deal with things like tax and finance raising, looking at how to improve your business. So much more advisory sort of skills. And they tend to help you to interpret the numbers, what's happening in your business. And it's really important that you do know your numbers. What's going on in my business? How successful am I? How well am I performing? Am I making any money? And one of the problems with accounting is that if you look at a set of accounts, it's just a page full of numbers. A profit and loss account, what's that? A balance sheet, what's that? Don't worry too much about the big picture in terms of the bulky documents. But just break it down into 3 or 4 things which are really key to your business. Your turnover, your sales, your profit. Have you sold all these goods or services, but have you actually made any money on it? So your profit is simply your income less your expenditure. How much money is in the bank? Cash is crucial. And how much money do your customers owe you? Those 4 bits of information can just be 4 numbers, and they are really key to your business success. And as you grow your business, you'll learn a bit more about your numbers and learn more about other figures in your accounts. So when you're running your own business, at the beginning, you can use things like cloud accounting to help you to do the bookkeeping yourself. But when you've grown to an extent, then you don't need to do that work. Get someone else to do it so that you can concentrate on selling and earning more money. And use accountants and bookkeepers to help you where you need to so that you can concentrate on growing your business. And hopefully you'll have a very successful business going forward. So a sort of quick canter through some of the topics that regularly come up from people setting up in business.
Great, thank you for that, Guy, for that overview. We're going to come back to you with some specific questions now, and that's where we're going to turn our attention to questions that you've asked pre-session. We're going to start with marketing. So I'm going to turn to Emma. A couple of questions around, we're going for funding, advice on domains, advice on accessing that sort of social presence that you talked about. If you were giving advice on somebody going from 0 to a business, what would be the fundamentals? What would be the steps that you would suggest that they take to get to that point of promoting their business?
Okay, so firstly, let's talk domains, because that's quite important. I think the 3 things that you really need to understand about marketing is its clarity, consistency, and communicating your value constantly to people who can buy from you. So looking at consistency around domain names, make sure that when you buy a domain, you can buy all the different versions of that domain, and it's quite short. So again, I've got some resources I can send about naming and things like that, because obviously I went through that and I didn't listen to my own advice. So I couldn't buy amari.com, for example, when I started my business. Same with social media, make sure that all of your channels are the same tag, because that makes it really easy for people to find you across the different channels. In terms of going from zero to hero, I think the first thing you really need to think about is have a really clear strategy on the types of people that you want to talk to, and don't focus so much on demographics, which is probably a little bit different from what most marketers will tell you. They'll put together a profile with, mid-40s, like cycling, married with 2 kids, small business owner making, whatever it is, turnover. But actually, when you're thinking about your perfect buyer, really be thinking about the problems that you're trying to solve for them, the situation that they're in. Try to empathize a lot more, think beyond demographics. And again, I've got a couple of templates that I can send which show you how to do that effectively. When you're looking at content, it is really easy to just start spamming the world with as much information as possible because you're just so enthusiastic about what you sell. Take a step back. Content is a monster that needs feeding constantly. So when you're thinking about content, get your one-pager straight first. Be very clear on who you are, what you do, and how you make a difference to people, and get those social proofings, get those testimonials and things like that. When you're looking at your perfect buyer, ask people who fit that profile within your network, or go to social media and say, I'm looking for people like this. Does anybody know anyone? Be really vulnerable, because asking people for favours is a great way to actually develop relationships, funnily enough. It's the Ben Franklin model. But when you're doing that, really ask them where they go for social media. You do not need to be on every single channel. It's monsters that need feeding all the time. So for me, I'm a B2B marketer, so I focus simply on LinkedIn. I don't bother with Instagram, I don't bother with Facebook, and I don't bother with Pinterest because I don't have time to manage all of those channels. When you're looking at content to create, once you've got your one-pager, start looking at the questions that people are asking you about your business, about your product or service, and make sure that you have content that answer those questions, because that's the information that people need in order to decide whether to work with you or not. And make sure you've got those FAQs all over your website, because that's going to help with your search engine optimization. It's going to help people find the information that they need, and then you can extend those questions, if you've got a lot to say about it, into blogs, into videos, and into infographics as well, which are really useful. And then what you can do with that information is then cut it down, and then you've got a social media plan. So really work on the message first, then think about the channel. So how you're going to get that message out. Is it a blog? Is it an infographic? Etc, etc, etc. And make sure that you've really thought about your marketing ecosystem, which I know as a startup is probably a terrifying phrase, but it's really not. And again, I can send everybody a resource after this, which is basically explains how all the different parts of marketing work together and how you can do that effectively without, blowing thousands of pounds, because I don't really want people to be in the same situation I was 3 years ago. So yeah, those are just a few bits to start off with.
It's very clear, Emma. I'm going to come back to you. And again, please use the chat function for questions that you want to send specifically to Emma or any of the panel. I'm going to turn to Jamie next. You've got experience of setting up your own business from scratch. You talked about chocolatiering and Costa Rica. And before we even get to marketing, solving the problems you help your customers solve, talk us through your thought process about the proposition and how you develop that proposition in order that it was then marketed, what Emma was talking about. Would you mind sharing a little bit of that personal insight, Jamie?
Yes, sorry, more regarding the product itself, bringing it into the market area. So absolutely, as Emma was saying, with those wonderful one-liners as well, I don't really have many like that. That in terms of really understanding what your customers want and need, you fall into the trap where you start to develop something, you're so passionate about it and you love it yourself, but actually is there even a demand for it? And I certainly started off in the chocolate industry of coming up with a few elaborate products that actually there wasn't really much demand for it, or actually wasn't even viable as a product. And so yes, you want to bring something different to the market, but you don't really want to try and be too clever. You don't want to be too different in a way that actually sets you outside, and you have to work a lot more harder to convince people that this is something that they want. So it's sort of following the trend and then being diverse and being slightly different from that as well. I mean, I brought out a product that was called the triple truffle, and there was no kind of mechanism or production to actually make it, and I had to create this whole process to develop this product that I believe greatly in, and it took 2 years to even get the production down to a key to make it viable as a product to sell. For that sort of 2 years or so, I was kind of almost just losing money on it because of the production time and sales, but then it did get there in the end. So as Andrew was saying, things can take time. You know, this is a 5-year development with a customer. So like even product development can take that long. If you know, if you greatly believe in it and there's a market for it, then yes, you put the effort in. But I do strongly recommend people not to get too personal about things like a product that actually there may not be a market for it, and really doing that research on that product, whether there's demand, is really key.
Yeah, that's very good advice, Jane. Falling in love with your idea without actually testing it in the market, I think, is a key piece of advice. I think that once you've got your proposition qualified, you're promoting it in the right way with Emma's advice. I'm going to come to Andrew now. Your tips about selling it. What can you add?
Okay, let's assume you've got a qualified prospect, somebody who looks like they're going to want what you need, what you're supplying. It's not about needing it; it's wanting it as well. Just remember this: every decision that a buyer makes is really an emotional decision. You know, they're only going with you for 3 sort of core reasons. They trust and like you. They've got to that point. You've got a good solution compared to something else, and your value appears to be about right. Actually, if you've got the first 2 right, your price doesn't have to be the cheapest. You know, it's not all about cheapest, it's value. It's, do you represent good value and the kind of value that they should be going for? So sometimes, you know, you might have to work hard to justify your value, but you probably will get the deal if they like you and you've got what they need and want. You know, it is at that level. But you'll have only got to that point because you haven't let them down. Remember that speed trumps indifference. So if you're going to get back to people and you made a promise that I'll get back to you tomorrow, get back to them tomorrow, not at the end of the week and then have an excuse. You know, I always like to, if somebody asks me the question, when will I get your proposal, or how soon can you do it? Always, you know, suggest that hopefully it'll be by the end of next week, probably early next week. And if I get it out by Friday, then I've beaten that promise. It's just, you're just setting the right scene there, really. And always be closing, ABC. And it's not closing, it's half closing. So half closing is, if I can get the price to you by such and such and it looks right, do you think you might be in a position to go ahead? That is so disarming. It's not putting anyone in a corner. It's a reasonable request. You're busy and you've got a pipeline, you know, and you're tempting people to make them feel, oh, right, well, I like what they've got and it seems to be the right sort of price and he seems a good guy, then yes, I probably will make a decision next week, perhaps after I've spoken to colleagues. So you've got to put people in the frame of mind that you're in business to do business. You know, you're not there to help people see what's good and nice out there and then go with somebody else. You need to have a level of fluency, and this comes back to some of the advice that others have provided, so that when you're chatting through what you're selling, you're an expert. And I went into business as self-employed, I could have gone limited company straight away, but I decided that I would go self-employed because it's me with my name on the line. And I was using the expertise that I'd built over the years in the field of telecommunications, such that when I was in business for the couple of years or so as a self-employed person, you wouldn't believe how, I was astonished at how big companies would place big orders with us. And they were not that bothered about whether I was self-employed or limited. You know, they just wanted to be sure that we had that we could deliver and we could support. And the fact that I was self-employed was a little tick in the box as opposed to being limited. We got to the size where we needed to be, and that advice that you gave, Len, and I think it was Bob, about getting other people involved in the business so that it frees your time to deal with the sales, because at the end of the day, you know, sales are so vital. I think that's what was, and I'm probably going a little bit off piece, but actually this thing of having goals is so important. It's like it feeds your head with reasons why you should get up a bit earlier, that you should perhaps do that non-customer contact time stuff in the evening so that you're reaching your sales goal for this month, for this quarter, for this year. But the sales goals, they're feeding all the other goals that you might have, the award goals. Getting awards and go for them early, you know, they do, you know, particularly if you've got a team of people who really should get some good recognition for the good work that they're doing. You giving them the employer of the month might be one thing, but actually getting a credential from a third party who's looked at your organization compared with others who feel that they're good enough to enter, and never mind get to a finalist and win. It is actually an important goal to have in the list. My business, M12 Solutions, it was actually named after my number plate. I didn't want to be called what we did, so I've got a number plate, M12AJS, and it was one of those random things that you do. But actually, M12 was brilliant for our goals. You know, we wanted to be in business 12 months. We wanted to be a 12-man business. We're still working on the last one. We want to get to £12 million turnover. We've hit a couple of others along the way, but having big goals really does help you with your sales, and it helps with your narrative when you're talking to people in industry, business contacts, and prospective customers. I hope that's been a useful bunch of anecdotes there.
Thank you, Andrew. I think that some fundamentals now about, you talked about funding, and I'm going to turn to Guy in a second. It also touches on creative use of funding and where to access it. Guy, are you able to talk about funding sources next, where we go to find sources of funding?
Yeah, I mean, funding is a big issue nowadays, with many of the sort of traditional sources lacking an appetite to lend. One of the keys of finding somewhere someone to lend you some money is making sure that you do actually have a plan. We come back to this world about goals again. You know, what are you looking to achieve? Where are you going with your business? What makes it different from everybody else? And lenders actually are much keener to hear about your story than they are about financials. The financials, the forecasts and whatever, which they almost certainly will need to predict where your finances are going for the next 3 years. But it's just a part of the documentation that you need to get together. Your story is just so much more important.
Yeah. That's great, Guy. I know we've had a couple of questions on where do people go for help on creating the right business plan. And I know that Ross, listening in the background, there's resources on the Chamber site, and I'll know that Tom, you'll probably have some thoughts on this, where people go to access, you know, how to write a decent business plan, for example.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have an enterprise program at the college, which we work with students. So we encourage our students, whilst they're at college, to start up their own businesses, those that are interested, or at least explore the concept of it. And probably the takeaway for you guys that I'd start with that we use is something called the business model canvas. And I think everybody that's spoken has talked about a one-pager, and this is a great example of a one-pager of the key components that you need to have in one place. And it allows you to just map that out and really think about your sort of key activities, your resources, your network, what your value propositions are, your customer segments and channels and relationships. So I can either add that in, or to be honest, you can Google it. It's widely available, the business model canvas, to be able to use. And the next thing that we do with that to then test that is we get we make sure students research and benchmark against the sector. So sometimes it's like, well, what do I need to think about with a business plan? There are lots of templates. There are live planning models you can use. If you use that business model canvas and use it and research against your sector, it's a really good starting point. So you can make sure that, you know, you're swimming in a blue ocean and not a red ocean like Bournemouth Beach a few weeks ago. And then the final thing we do, which touches on something Emma said actually, is we get the students to present the business concept back to us to help consolidate the learning and think about what, you know, people will be analytical of it. We encourage the other students to be really analytical, and I'd encourage you to do the same with your friends, family, other people in the business. Get people to pick it apart, because they'll identify the gaps for you, and then lo and behold, that can be the stuff that you start to fill in and go and read the blogs that others are writing around it.
Yes. So that natural progression, where we started the conversation around, you know, getting your proposition, your business plan sorted out, interrogate that business plan, go forward then for funding. Guy, I cut you off prematurely. I know that you were talking about funding sources, but are there any sort of grants or loans available for people to access over and above traditional banking channels?
There are a few grants and things around, but you have to look hard for them at the moment. It's worth contacting places like the local, you know, your Chamber of Commerce and the local colleges, because they do have access into funds for business startups. And there are other organisations around that are sort of centrally funded to help business startups. You've also got a lot of sort of peer-to-peer lending organisations available to try and find some funding. Funding Circle, one of the sort of probably the best known ones.
Yeah.
That said, that they're all going through a period where funding is not as easy to get as it was 12 months ago, therefore it is actually becoming much harder to find funds to help, and probably one of the things that businesses that are in the startup phase need to just think about carefully is, you know, what can you manage on? What do you need to have as much funding as perhaps you originally thought you did? Can you manage with some more second-hand equipment and find that, rather than having, you know, going straight into an office with gleaming furniture? There are things which you can do to sort of delay the need to take on board so much funding, and in the current environment, that's not a bad idea. So everyone is trying to preserve cash as much as possible.
Okay.
Can I just add a couple of things to that, if that's okay, Rob?
Yes, go for it, Emma.
So I took a tech startup through a couple of successful investment rounds couple of years ago now. On LinkedIn, there are actually angel investor groups that you can pitch to. So that's a great way of using social media to make some money. And also, when I started my business, I sort of pretended I had a magic wand and that someone had given me a load of money and what I would actually spend that money on. And then I went out to my network and found the things I wanted to spend the money on, because it was easier for someone to give me a hot desk in their office than it was for them to give me money. It was easier to, you know, just barter and favors and sort of do I'll do this for you if you do that for me, to get the skills and the support and the access and all the other things that I needed. So that's, again, one thing I always recommend to people is actually think about what you'd spend the money on and see if it's easier to get that instead from people.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant advice, Emma. I want to bring Len in now. Len, I'd like to pick your brains on, we've had a couple of people on the call that are about to start, say, for example, a professional services business. You've been in professional services for some time. Where do you start with that? You've had a rich history in HR and providing business services. Where do you start?
The easiest way to start is to narrow down your niche and to be very clear about where your own particular interest, love and passion is, because that's where you'd be the most confident, the most credible and most congruent. You need to keep things simple and then target out. I mean, Emma was saying about the ideal client. In doing professional service, particularly if it's going to be to individuals or other small businesses or even larger businesses, you need to be very clear about who is your target, understand their problems and their needs, what's their pain points and what's going to make them want to come to you. With professional services, I saw one of the questions there, what is the single most important factor in your success? So one of the things that I would answer to that, which helps with professional services, is networking and collaborating. You've just got to get out there and network and get to know. Selling professional services is a people-to-people business. And the more they get to know you, the more they like you, the more you're part of their world, even if it's just on a social circle to start off with. But become friends, get to be known, give before you ask, be very clear about, and keep it very simple and very targeted. There's often this challenge that if you could do many things to many people, the more I advertise all the different things I can do, and the more I promote it, surely I'll get something. But actually, the more, Emma's laughing because she knows this one very well. The more you say you can do, the more you dilute your message, the more you confuse people, the less likely they are to buy.
Yeah.
Whereas if you actually be as specific as you can, be very specific, very targeted, know that industry, that market, that person inside out, so that you really get to know what their buttons are, and then target. Where somebody said this earlier on, where do these people hang out? Where do they go? Where do they network? Where do they collaborate? And you can do that virtually in a face-to-face world. Which is how I started. I mean, my answer to that particular question was, I just networked like mad. Network, which is why I joined the chamber, and I was networking everywhere, got to know all the different key people in Surrey, which is where I'm based, the key organisations, they got to know me, and I developed like a personal brand. And then I started to get, the first 6 months of networking, I didn't get a single bit of business. And I was going like to 2 or 3 networking events a week. And I didn't get any business for 6 months. This is going back a long time, but still. And it took me a long time to get my head around how do you actually network. Once I did that, I then started to get business. But the other interesting thing about networking, and I did this over a number of years, over 90% of my income and my clients were not chamber members or were not members of the networking organizations that I was going to. But they were referrals of friends that I was making in the networking circles that I was networking in. And that's where the floodgates came. So I would say, in answer to that question, particularly for professional services, it's a personal business. I mean, so get out there and network.
That's very good. Thank you, Len. I know that from personal experience, sometimes you've got to be very cold-hearted and strategic. So which business, there's a question about COVID and the effect it's going to have on business generally. You know, what particular organizations do you think may well survive or thrive in these times, and perhaps a cold-hearted targeting of those businesses may stand you in good stead. Let's go to Tom. I want to explore, because resource that's not necessarily all financial. There are young, bright minds out there that have so much to add to these startup businesses. What advice would you give to somebody that perhaps wants to employ or work with a young apprentice, or maybe even a Kickstarter when we get a bit more detail? How would they go about doing that, Tom?
Yeah, sure. So I think once you've identified the need, that's the starting point, and how somebody can help you support that. Then if you get in contact with your local college, so I'll give the example of Portsmouth, obviously, because I'm based there. A member of the team would be quite happy to come and spend some time with you or your business, and do a bit of a training needs analysis. Is a really good starting point from our perspective, because there's no cost to that, and it's a worthwhile process to go through anyway. And then we can start to identify. We've done a bit of a tube map tool, to be honest, which is those pathways that I was talking about earlier that I'll share with everybody through the group afterwards. And then we basically just decide which stops on the tube map you will best support your business. So is it a work experience student coming in? Is it an apprentice coming in to support your business? And where I talked right at the beginning about time versus money, and I think that's where an apprentice fits really well. If you can't find the financial resource to put in and support the growth of your business, but you need that support, then instead of that, you can give time, and you can give time in developing the next person that's going to work in really growing your business. And then they receive training, obviously, alongside the time they spent with you. And that's represented in the wages. You know, everyone with apprenticeships especially thinks, I can get some cheap labour in, they'll fill a gap. And that's completely the wrong way to do it, really. I think if you want somebody who you want to invest and really develop, then they will expect to be paid a bit less, because the inherent benefit is that they're going to get knowledge and skills and an opportunity to move into the world of work. And one thing that's guaranteed with the youth of today is they're certainly values-based, you know, and they'll be very aware of the fact that it needs to be a two-way process from that side. If you have somebody who's got lots of knowledge and skills and experience, but you still want to set them up as an apprentice on a level 5 qualification, by all means, pay them a little bit more money for the time they've spent developing their knowledge, skills and experience, and support that with an apprenticeship to help them take that next step. So the answer to the question really is reach out to your local provider. I'll certainly be happy to arrange for members of the team to come out and have a chat and see how we can support that business growth.
That's fantastic, Tom. I know from personal experience, we've had 5 apprentices in the past, and all have gone on to bigger and better things than Mission. Very proud of what we've done with them. You know, for the first time ever, we're looking to the next generation on advice on how to run our businesses, especially an old git sitting here looking at social media and things, and Emma, steep learning curve, that we're all climbing. So I wanted to turn to Jamie, because one of the things that we haven't talked about is, and Len mentioned it briefly, was personal development and looking after self in all of this. So Jamie, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience in that field?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, being very sort of self-aware and self-confidence being a massive thing in my life. Growing up, probably not a huge amount of confidence, although surrounded by a lot of people who did, especially in a football team. So I spent the last few years really kind of working on myself and how I could develop as a person, but also that self-awareness of things that I do really well and things that I kind of need to work on. And also, if I know someone else that can do it maybe a bit better or have the answers that I don't, then I have the confidence to say, you know what, I'm actually not the right person to answer this, but I know someone else can help you. There's great strength in that. I think sometimes we try to flag away through things, and that actually there's more respect in just being honest and say, you know, I can go to someone else, or you can go to someone else actually for that, but they'll have respect for you and want to come back to you for something that you specialise in or you know of. So yeah, in terms of self-confidence and self-awareness, it's a massive thing to build on, and there's ways that you'll find to do this. And you possibly may feel like you are a confident person, but perhaps you just need to understand a bit more about where you are and where you want to go with things, and what strengths do you want to work on. So there's a lot of I put a TED talk in the chat earlier about resilience as well, so having resilience to things, especially in business, but also I was just looking at the other one I shared about having that mental strength as well. So the unhealthy beliefs that you have on oneself, and you may not even realize it. I have a friend who always sort of end things with but I can't think I can do this, or but I'm not sure about this. And that's one of the worst things you have. If you remove the word but from your life, I'd recommend that as the first thing that you do. So yeah, in terms of the business journey, as I said, if you're on your own and you're doing this as a solo journey, is you really need to have that self-confidence to move forward, and but those people who can support you as well. Your kind of support network is everything in my world.
Thank you, Jamie. I think that it's a great advice. We're going to put you into some brief breakout rooms now, and the purpose of these breakout rooms is just we want to make this as interactive and collaborative as we possibly can. We can make assumptions about what you need, but it's no substitute for actually asking you, has this been useful? What do we need to cover in subsequent sessions? So Bob, the moderator in the background, will shortly be putting you into the breakout rooms. We're going to do it randomly. So in order for us to provide an even better level of service to you as you make this transition, what would you need from us? Make it very specific, that we can make that the focus for future sessions. That's the question. 5-10 minutes, we'll bring you back in, and then we'll invite you to put your comments on the chat, but as important, if not more important, address the panel so that we can record them. Bob?
Okay.
Over to you. Hi, Emma.
Hello.
Good discussion.
That was so good. Yeah, they're going to have like a little project. It's great.
Diana, all good?
Hi.
Gillian, Craig. Good. I'm gonna pounce on you in a minute, Emma. You're gonna, or one of the team, and share some of those things that you discussed for everyone's benefit, and we'll make a list.
Got the notes. Good to go.
Very good. Are you all transfixed, Diana, by Emma's fish tank?
I've just got a little.
I thought it was a screen, computer screen.
Did you?
Screensaver.
No, very real.
Or one of those virtual backgrounds that everybody's rocking these days.
That's an idea, Craig. A virtual fish background.
Yeah.
You can get them.
Oh, send me the link.
There's also a Twitter channel that's been set up during COVID, which is called Rate My Background. And they basically, you send them your background and then they give you a review and a mark out of 10.
I'm on it.
Which is lovely.
Fishes. We're waiting for a few more to come back from the breakouts, I think. Is that right, Bob?
Well, I'm going to use this opportunity for a quick comfort break then, if we've got a couple of minutes.
Wait for people to.
It's all right, we're not proctoring them, so it's you won't get switched off.
So for those panelists that have just come back, I'm going to ask you to, either you or one of your team in your breakouts, just to share some of the discussions that you had. We can note these down, pop them on chat as well, and use those to inform future discussions.
I only had 2 in my breakout, but potentially useful is one of the guys has been in my industry and is setting up a consultancy. So there's probably an offline conversation.
Probably a potential employee then, Andrew.
Yeah, or actually his consultant, he knows what we do. Actually, not having employees is sometimes a way to go. You know, just building your people.
Yes.
You bring in, and on occasions we do that as well.
Okay, well, I think we're gonna start. Emma's back. So Emma, why don't we start with your team?
Okay.
So I don't mind how you do it. One of your team wants to suggest, or you share your output. How can we get it more right next time?
Well, I think it wasn't necessarily about getting it right next time. I think everyone took a lot away from the session today, but there were some great ideas about what we could do for additional sessions, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah,
so one was around actually having confidence in becoming self-employed, which I think picks up on Jamie's point really well. There was something there around marketing and sales during a period of crisis and actually having the confidence to do that effectively and how to do that in the right way, I think, without becoming too salesy.
Yeah.
There was something there around building relationships in the virtual world as well, because obviously that's the, the main way we're doing it these days.
Yeah.
So looking at the real basics, like there was a conversation about registering a company and things like that, like going, really taking it back to basics, and then looking at more practical sessions as well. So actually, for example, looking at buyer profiles or who your perfect customer is, actually putting together a workshop on that specifically with templates where people can come together and actually work through that element of marketing and almost have like a working group for that. I think that's everything. If anyone in my group wants to add any more, please feel free. But I think I captured everything.
That's great. Very good. Good. So, Guy, you're muted. What were your discussions? What did you discuss?
Very much about just setting up in business in the first place. Do I really need to trade as a limited company? How do you actually go about setting up a business? There are lots of questions that come out when you're looking to set up your own business, and the inability to sort of answer one question means you can't move on to the next, you can't move on to the next. And I think there was a whole sort of piece about how you put together the right questions to ask yourself when you're setting up in business, and therefore the right format. And of course, from my point of view, each one is individual as well, but we can there's certainly some work or some help that we could give people about helping them to create the right organisation, the right structure.
Okay, brilliant.
We also had quite a bit of discussion about if you've got a good idea, how do you register it? How do you deal with the IP? How do you actually raise money to help you take it to market, and these sort of ideas. So very much raising finance when you haven't got a business track record to prove anything.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds like a great discussion. I'm sure that Tom would have resources on those generic questions that you need to ask yourself of your business.
Yeah, very much. I think, like I say, using that business model canvas. Actually, one of the things we talked about in our group as well from that side is whilst they warmed up with their questions, was about starting with why. And I talked about the Simon Sinek video on TED Talks, one of the most watched. I'm sure lots of people have seen it, but if you haven't, it's a good way of watching. Start with why and understanding your values and becoming a values-based organisation. And in turn, what are your value propositions beyond your core product? And I gave the example of the college and doing a so what test on yourself. So, if someone was to talk to the college and say, what do you do? Well, we deliver fantastic A levels and BTECs. Well, so what? And then just went through the cycle and see how many layers you can go down to, and then that will allow you to form how you present your offer, you know, and then you're able to flip it, understanding all those different layers, you know, by saying, we believe if you choose Portsmouth College, you leave us with a thirst for knowledge and be prepared for the next steps to go on and do the job that you know, you love for the rest of your life. Do you want to come and find out how we do that?
Yeah.
That's a much better way of exploring the business.
Yeah, oh, that's fantastic. Anything else that you discussed, Tom?
Yeah, so a couple of really good questions, actually, which, like I say, that's why the warming up process was so important. One was around what I would do, what advice I would give my younger self, and what I learned. And from my perspective, that would be around making sure, which I think Jamie talked about earlier, making sure that your product is right and that it is values based, but that there is a demand for it. I started out selling scholarships to America and quickly realized it was a saturated market and I needed to adapt my business model. And it probably took me 10 years to get to the point of understanding I wanted to just run a local football coaching company that met the needs for kids in Portsmouth, that was different and gave young coaches a chance to build a career doing something they love.
Yeah.
You know, I started out big, being Mr. Global, and quickly pulled that back. So I think that would be the advice I'd give to myself. And what do I think the impact of COVID is going to be? My personal opinion with that is it's about surviving the next 12 months. I think if you can be adaptable, put more time in, expose people to your offer for the next 12 months, I think that a lot of the money has managed to stay in the economy. So people do have money in comparison to 2008, you know, where the money was gone. I think the money is there. It's just about how you get through that next 12 months in order to recover. And then the other question was around having lots of interest in their product and not being able to convert it into sales further down the line. And I've referred really to what Andrew said earlier about the ABs and half Cs. I think finding ways to expose people to your product, even if it is having a loss leader to start with, especially when working in the luxury product arena, and then building up interest and using those people that you give those free samples to then cross promote and sell your product and see the value in it first.
Yeah,
that's one way of getting it over the line and sort of spreading your reach.
Fantastic. Sounds like you had a really good discussion there. So, Guy, sorry, Len, tell us a little bit about your group. What did you discuss? Anything that we haven't talked about, Len, that you were discussing?
Actually, Rob, I had two people in my discussion group, but they didn't engage, and they both actually disappeared off the group and are no longer live, so I never actually got any feedback from them.
Oh, that's a shame.
I sent you a direct message just to let you know.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
I didn't even get a chance to put them off.
They're lost, Len. They're lost. Andrew, we've talked. Anyone else from any of the other panelists want to share what they discussed that hasn't already been covered?
Yeah, just to add to what I said, that it was interesting that Chris, the chap who I know through my sector, has probably got what many people are facing, that they've exited or are looking to exit an organisation where they've been, you know, they've had a lot of people around them, and they've been sort of busy with very much the working life in the business, and now they're outside of that and all the comfort that gives, and there is a strong need to gain new relationships in order to help get off the ground. And as I'm in the same sector, that's something I'm quite happy to do with Chris, but I'm sure that must be the same with other people. Always get people around you and buddies to help you along the way. People who will actually look out for you. And there's an awful lot of goodwill out there.
Yeah.
And there was the other lady, Layla, who's got who's very local to Southampton, B2C, just talking about the tactical use of social media and how useful. I mean, Facebook marketing can be to target a particular audience in order to attract them to what you do without wasting money on the scattergun approach. That can be particularly well targeted.
Yes, some great discussions by the sounds. Jamie, I'm going to come to you now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about a business plan being more of a working document. So it's not something that you just sort of type up and leave it to the side and that's your business for the next few years. It's a working document to have, you know, with you on the side, on your desk all the time. And it can get messy. You can add notes to it. You can change things. You have this goal in mind, always there, but you know it's always adapting. So it's worth sort of thinking about that. As I know, as a business plan, we sometimes just get drawn in this thing. If it's once it's done, we have a big old celebration, and that's the business for the whole future. It's not quite like that. Things about creating routines. So I talk about in terms of self-care, self-routine, self-awareness. Actually having a routine and building things into your lives, whether it could be apps on your phone that remind you to do things and build a routine, or even just day-to-day life stuff, looking after yourself. I have one that is slightly mocked by the group, but it's one about reminding me to drink water, and it literally within an hour or so, it would tell me actually how much I've drunk that day or morning. So it sounds silly, but it does actually help quite a lot. So yeah, a few things around that.
I think it's great. Anything that we haven't, anyone from the wider team want to say anything? Joe, Julie, Lena, Chris, Lee, anyone from the want to say anything that we've missed? Isn't that the case? A couple of thoughts from me. I know that from our business, we support we had from the DTI, they put us in touch with a company called the Board of Innovation, boardofinnovation.com, and they wrote a couple of papers called on the low touch economy. It provides a really nice tool to a frame, a lens through which you judge your business as it relates to COVID. It's a very good set of slides, and it will help you push your proposition through it, road test it, and see if it meets certain criteria. I found that very useful. Another tip that Emma was talking about as well around, I was once told if you could summarize what your business does in under 140 characters or 140 characters, that's quite a good discipline to get to. I'm just conscious of the time. We've got about 10 minutes left. Ross, I'd like to invite you to close the session, and then we'll be on our way. So Ross, over to you, sir.
Thanks very much, Rob. Firstly, thank you so much to all of the panelists. You've been wonderful today, and your expertise, I will say, has shone through. So that's been a real joy working with you. And thank you, Rob, for your wonderful professionalism in driving this forward. This is the start of a process for us all that we are starting and supporting you through Chamber of Solutions for Startups, and we want to make sure that we are here to help you. This is also a start of your journey in terms of sharing with others, with colleagues, and so I actively encourage you, when you get sent the link, which you will be, to join in the LinkedIn group, and more importantly, to come on to future sessions, because we've already said that we'll be looking at the impact of COVID, and that was one of the points that came through. How do we market in this very difficult crisis time? So I think the learning from the lockdown and learning from the COVID situation is something that's really powerful. And certainly in the group that I was in, I would say 50% of it was all about money. And so how do we, on a personal basis, how do we from a company basis, self-employed basis, set around the structures of our funding and finances in a way that makes sense and keeps our family together and keeps the wolf from the door, and make sure that we can operate effectively as a business. Those challenges that are coming in from you. And also, I think the most important thing, and the very reason why we have this community of practice as a Chamber of Solutions, is it's all about you, about your confidence, and about getting up every morning and being the entrepreneur, being the authentic entrepreneur that you want to be and that you can be. And we're here to support you in doing that. So thank you so much for attending. Please spread the word, because we want this to grow into a larger community. We want to, it's been very much around Portsmouth and the Solent area, but spread the word. If you know people that want to participate and would benefit from it, please get them to join, because the stronger and the larger the group, the better we are in supporting each other. Thank you very much. It's been an eye-opener and a real joy working with you all, and I look forward to doing so over the coming weeks and months. Rob.
Thank you, Ross. Echo all of Ross's comments. Thank you, panelists, for your sage advice. Everyone for attending. It's very much a collaboration, so together we're stronger. One of the key messages I'll take away is that the quality and power of networking. Within this space here, we have all the resources that we need to make our businesses even stronger. So stay with it. Thank you for attending. You are in on the ground floor, so to speak, the early adopters. Hopefully you'll stay with us, and bring a friend next time. See you in the next session. Have a great rest of the week. We will, I have recorded this, and I'll send you, I think it will be on a link on the Hampshire Chamber page, probably the Portsmouth one too. So very best of luck. See you in a few weeks' time.